When we take a look at the first chapters from the book of Genesis about the creation, the garden, etc., many events are not in the biblical texts. Sumerian texts give incredible additional information, whether it is in Gnostic ones or in the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylon text about the creation. What's interesting is that they all mention a mother goddess that comes from the depths. Sophia is the mother of the abyss because, as the story goes, she went to the deepest point of the abyss in order to create the world as we know it. In Gnostic, Sumerian, even Egyptian texts, the abyss is always linked to the process of creation. All mother goddesses were.
Sophia really comes from a Greek term, sophis, which means wisdom. In the beginning, before there was even a god or a creative force, everything was dark, nothing existed. And because God and wisdom and knowledge are simultaneous with each other, they figured, well, if that's the case, then wisdom must have existed in the dark. And in order for it to be procreative, it had to be feminine. So they created this concept of a divine feminine person, a woman, who embodied the whole perfection of the wisdom and all the sum knowledge of everything that exists in the universe. So the Greeks show up and they called her Sophia, based on Sophis, the term for wisdom.
If about 5,000 years ago, when you get the emergence of, at least in our timeline, of the first great cities, and that seems to be when this testosterone-driven male aggression and anger start to take everything over, and the goddesses phase out. We still have goddesses, but they're not running the world anymore the way they appear to have done in much more ancient times. There's a clear change of emphasis, and we start having male gods, and they're often very angry and, aggressive and domineering male gods, and they want to go take other people's stuff. It's as though some sort of mental virus has entered the world, and we've become these creatures fizzing with testosterone, making war upon one another. You'd be hard put to find evidence of warfare in the Upper Paleolithic when the goddess ruled the world. There was no warfare. These people, they were hunting animals, but they weren't killing each other, not in large numbers at any rate. They may have had the odd fight, but they weren't making war upon one another. But you come down into the Neolithic, as we begin to see the goddess cult trailing off and male gods taking their place, and warfare becomes a very key element of human behavior. And so I think that an old ethic and an old way of doing things, which was harmonious and beautiful and was sustained for tens of thousands of years, was overthrown by the upsurge of the male ego. And I would tie that very much at its worst to the time of the emergence of the first cities, from in our historical timeline, ancient Sumer.